What's up, lads? Don't be fooled by Company of Heroes 3's slick cinematic presentation and bombastic fireflies. At the beginning of the thing, it's a fiercely intelligent real-time strategy that draws player in interesting choices, and it could be one of my favorite real-time strategies games ever. This is a bold claim thing and easy one to justify when you look at the board. How well the game plays, but also how much content is already in here for fans of the single player, co-op, and even PvP strategy. If you haven't played real-time strategies before, that's reasonable. The genre has fallen on hard times, and while before we might have a mega franchise like Age of Empires, Command & Conquer, and even Supreme Commander, now games where you control units from a top-down perspective and try to take over the world, like when the World War II, are few and far between. Throughout, the World War II is a popular setting for real-time strategy games. I'll sell RTAs games, okay? Company of Heroes 3 has some of the best-looking battles in the genre. Tanks cook up with a burning roar, naval artillery thrums down over the battlefield, and pointed 30 Call machine gun fires rigs the battlefield, pinning infantry under a withering hail of the bullets. The red mist when a squad gets hit by high explosives and just stops existing is cool to the inner teenager, but horrifying to armchair generals who has just realized a bad strategy, or sometimes a misclick, has condemned so many digital men to their deaths. Even the murder is stunning. Every individual soldier in your unit has their own animation, and it's cool to mean you're watching a single Panzergarden in your squad stumble slightly while running towards a capture point, or you see individual soldiers in a heavy weapon squad keep watchful eyes on the flank while the rest set up having a weapon itself. Layer on the fact that every map in the game is beautifully detailed and tactically interesting. It's the hard thing to RTS that looks better, that feels more immersive despite your eagle eye while physically separating you from the battle. Sink your teeth in the Company of Heroes 3, however, and you'll see the real depth behind the developer Relic flashy presentation. The game's dynamic campaign is a charming invasion of Italy as you battle the German war machine while leveling up your armies and fortifying your captured theory owes more than a little anime favorite Total Warhammer 3, and even it has developed more than a little. The game work on it. You can feel creative assemblies input in the overworld and army base upgrades and see the studio little fingerprints every time you see an ability or position armies with a justice, so you can call American commandos up your British allied regime. The campaign is the main event for solo players and it feels replayable. Players have a real freedom. Get a blade and a squad of special forces into the same location and you can drop them behind enemy lines, snatching resistance bases and seaports so you can reinforce your push, or cleaning anti-air emplacements so you can bomb enemy cities into the submission. Of course, if you bomb the cities with the civilians, your contact in the French resistance will be pissed. Ignore the warmongering American general who wants to invade Rome by launch, and he'll be pissed at you, while the British guy that works a slow and stable push can also get pissed if you don't do what he wants. But if you somehow keep them on the side, you get increasingly powerful abilities and passive skills to help you battle the Germans. The beauty is here that not everybody in the town you have to capture is fight, not from every scrap is skirmish either. There are scores of bespoke missions that you can tackle, some laudably easily if you were brought the correct forces. One mission that has you on time slot through enemy force to rescue French resistance fighters was rendered meaningless when I dropped some prepper tones from the sky and a heavy machine gun, letting me fortify the area until more real forces can move up. Had I approached this without the ability to drop in paratroopers, I had my work cut off me, but I felt smart for stumbling upon the mission with the perfect counter. My only really complaint is that it's not easy at campaign level. You can always overpower even the toughest enemies by outplaying them with your abilities. Your armies will operate in interesting ways, letting you drop wide phosphor barrages or call it the biggest tank you've ever seen. Screen snacking with the enormity of the thing, it is roles to help support your next biggest push. Enormous tanks aren't relegated to the dynamic campaign though. The story mode drops you in Africa as the part of the Rommel's big push, and not only you control the Rommel in a huge tank himself, the large flat battlegrounds are perfect for lowering tanks around it. This is where another cool features comes into play. Your infantry will use tanks as a solid cover given half a chance, meaning you create your own steel wall to let soldiers push up to capture locations. The campaign itself feels like a luck strucker compared to the shining beacon of the dynamic Allied campaign, but it's well written and full of tense script beats. Letting you play as a Rommel is well odd. It's personal preference, but I think that most comfortable with playing the World War II German fractions because they theoretically fascist. It's very different when you're playing as for a real he actually existed fascist. It feels icky, and I can imagine it worse for anyone who experienced the actual persecution at the hands of the Nazi party. Regardless, the mechanical side for the campaign highlights a lot of the new changes, particularly beefing up of the game around the vehicles, with it being easy to wear. Your tank has its stronger armor, while the tanks to survive a beating will come away looking whatever and messed up, scoring and pockmarked from attempts to defeat them. The game would be worth buying for those two models alone, honestly, but Skirmish is a real meat of the game, and where you can play with the arms both corporately and completely. This feels like the company of heroes has always felt. There are 3 different trees for each faction. You capture control points and bleed the enemy's tickets down until you win. I think the fact the game has launched with the 4 factions that feel so deserve is real win. The American forces feel fairly standard and they're mostly flexible. Veteran C with US forces lets you choose between 2 different upgrades, so you can quickly make a squad of riflemen into a squad that can sprint fast or squad capable of lathering people with the extra firepower. This constant tactical choices make things more interesting in the moment-to-moment gameplay. While Wehrmacht plays more like a traditional German company of the Heroes army, all big tanks and the Panzer grenades, while the Afrika Corps are fast-moving and capable of some ridiculous skirmish nonsense with the access to the motorbike, with the machine gun strapped to it from the start of every match. The British feel like the weakness faction on the bunch, but they're best suited for specific roles. In game where tanks can offer region supreme, it can feel a lot ways like there isn't answer to this with the British forces. Further play could make a little cleaner, but after just a few hours with each, there are faction that feels the least as fun. There are few multiplayer maps at launch, although in the 20 or so multiplayer matches I played were often going through the same map again and again and again and again, and it wasn't an issue, as spawning from the other side often creates a whole new set of tactical challenges and opportunities. A bridge you might previously have minded is now a vital road for you to get tank reinforcement, so you need to protecting it with machine guns and anti-tank replacements. Or eventually you need to use a defensive line is now top of your list to shell with the artillery. That has always been what defines the exceptional game as opposed to the great one for me. The company of Heroes 3 has burrowed so far into my head that I'm spending a lot of my waking hours thinking about both the game and how the system and strategies within might interact. It's it's a must play. So quite simply, Company of Heroes 3 is probably the best real-time strategies of the last decade. A wealth of the single-player content and a solid foundation for a long-term multiplayer action have combined to make the cinematic World War II masterpiece that essentially for the strategy games. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment and subscribe. Peace.